guys, I'm Adam, this is Unlimited Films. Today we're doing a film review for Astra, which is a film set in space starring Brad Pitt. So I've got my sheet of notes here, we're comfy, we're ready to crack on. So let's go. So I'm going to take you through the plot quickly, key characters, key themes, and some other points about this film that I feel are important surrounding it, such as special effects and some other points that it makes about life in general. So the plot, I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet because on my last one it was quite long, quite drawn out. I'm going to try and speed it up a bit. So, Brad Pitt plays Roy McBride. He's a space comm pilot, space command for longer, for the American military. So, this film is basically his father goes missing. He's gone on a deep space project years ago. 30 years has passed, he's grown up, he's now doing space command. They take him into a room, his senior officers, and they say to him, "We think we've found your father, this is highly confidential, we can't have this leaking. Are you willing to take this mission and go and rescue him and the other people on board this ship?" He accepts it. He puts his personal feelings to one side because, as we find out, that's the character. I'll be discussing this later in the characters section. So throughout his journey we follow him from the Earth to the Moon to Mars and to Saturn finally, which is where the ship's located. Throughout this journey he takes several space voyages, some with people, some on his own. And this is where we see a lot of key character development. So he first moves from Earth to the Moon, and a guy called Thomas Pruitt, who is played by Donald Sutherland, accompanies him on this journey. Now he believes that Thomas Pruitt's character will be coming with him throughout the whole journey. However, this doesn't end up happening because he falls ill. Now this is only sort of the first half an hour of the film. It's not majorly important, but one key thing really happens, which is where Thomas Pruitt's character, or Donald Sutherland's character, which is Thomas Pruitt, gives him the key piece of information to this film, which is that the mission isn't actually to rescue his dad, is to destroy his father's project. Because his father's project has been beaming out high energy beams, which is all I really understood about it because I'm not that techie, across the solar system. It's causing massive disruption to the Earth's electrical systems, and that is putting lives at risk across the solar system, meaning it has to be destroyed at all costs. Brad Pitt's character, Roy McBride, he's not really uneasy about this. He's actually a mission first kind of guy. That's what his dad was. He's happy to do the same thing. He leaves him on the Moon because he's too ill to continue. He's quite an old guy, so he simply says, "Look, I can't come with you." He's rushed in for emergency surgery, and that's about as much as we hear from him. However, the one scene that I really want to talk about is based on the Moon with these two characters, and it's where the American military tries to transport them across the Moon. This is the best scene in the whole film, in my opinion, because we get to see pirates on the Moon try and raid the cars that are carrying them across the Moon. And this is fantastic because we're getting laser battles in 1960s style Moon rovers, and it's all anti-gravity, all trying to get to the dark side of the Moon. And well, most of them die. Obviously our hero doesn't, although he's not really a proper hero, but our hero doesn't die, obviously, because he makes it to the end of the film. But during this scene we get to see a lot of cool special effects coming together, you know, the representation of the Moon, the mining colonies, the laser beams being fired at each other. And it's quite funny because I suppose how would a laser beam really fire when there's no gravity? But I didn't really go that deep into it. I just enjoyed it for what it was. And when he starts getting rammed by the pirates and he goes flying off down this hill, and that is spectacular. The special effect work on this part of the film is unbelievable in my opinion. So that was personally my favourite scene in the whole film. Don't want to give too much more away about it than that, but that was a fantastic part of the film. Probably the best part. The next sort of 40 minutes is very story heavy, so I'm not going to discuss it too much. But basically from here on in, he meets the crew of the ship that's going to transport him to Mars, and he sort of knows that it's a destruction mission, but he believes he's now on a civilian ship. We get a really farcical scene with a killer monkey that I'm not even going to bother discussing because it's so poor and took me out of the film completely, that, to be honest with you, I feel like if I described it much more than that, it might put people off watching the film, and I actually think it's a film worth watching. I just think that this part of the story arc is really, really poor, and I think it's just to try and like get rid of the captain of the ship, and it didn't really need to be in there for me. But long story cut short, they go to a Mayday call. He only agrees to do the Mayday call because he can't give away his confidential mission, and there's like this killer monkey on this ship because they've been bioengineering animals, and the captain gets like his face eaten, and it's not a great part of the film. It's a bit silly, but it does what it needs to do. It's sort of a time filler. From here we then get to Mars. Now Mars is quite a key setting. Not really as exciting as the moon, but it's key. And the reason it's key is because we meet the head of Mars, which is played by Ruth Negga. Her name is Helen Lantos. And what we discover is that her parents have gone on the mission with Roy McBride's dad. And this is where we get the most key piece of information as to what's happened here, which is that basically people tried to leave the deep space journey to try and discover new life because no new life had been discovered, and Roy McBride's father, who is played by Tommy Lee Jones, called Clifford McBride, wouldn't let them leave. He decided to kill them instead of letting them leave. And this is where we start to see why Space Command kind of needs the man destroying or the ship destroying, because this guy's been painted as a hero. It'd be really embarrassing if this got out. So rather than letting it get out, destroy him, keep the history covered up, better for them. I suppose that's quite realistic in today's world. So she explains this to him. He's very devastated because he's always believed his father to be a hero, and he starts questioning his mentality about his father then, because he's always believed that he wants to be like his dad, he needs to be like his dad, mission first man. And he starts thinking, actually, have I given up too much here? Because if we just fall back to the start of the film quickly, the reason he's got this mentality is because he lets his girlfriend walk away so that he can continue with Space Command and follow in his father's footsteps. He then comes to realise that this was a mistake and that he should have stayed with the girlfriend and enjoyed his life, and realises that love and life is as important as the mission. The final part, sort of the final half an hour of the film, 40 minutes of the film, we have him travelling off to Saturn. He has to board the ship as a hostile. The crew tries to kill him. He kills all of them instead. He didn't want to do it. It's not purposeful, but he has to do it to achieve his mission. So what we have here is where he's now travelling from Mars to Saturn, which is a 40-day journey, and he's on his own. So he's basically in solitary confinement in deep space for 40 days. And this is where we see a lot about his mentality. He starts discussing how wherever people go, destruction follows. He starts watching this video of his girlfriend over and over again, considering, has he made the wrong choice? Should have he maybe stayed on Earth with her? Should have he lived a life? Should have he loved? And he also discusses about loneliness as well, and how he always believed that he wanted to be alone, he was better alone. And now he's sort of discovering that in deep space, in his loneliness, it's not really the best thing. Which I feel like is quite a realistic viewpoint of the world, where sometimes people want to be alone and then they realise that actually it's important to have others helping you throughout your journey. He then makes it to Saturn, he meets his dad, and his dad's basically gone Barney. His dad is so desperate to find new life, and it's just not going to happen for him, basically. He tries to get his dad off the ship. His dad basically decides that he can't go back. This is where his home is, this is where he'd rather die. And so he uses the little space jetpack thing to just shoot himself off into space, goes away, dies. Roy McBride manages to make it back to the ship. He returns to Earth, not really a hero, but he's done the job. He's destroyed the ship. He obviously can't really be seen as a hero because it was a confidential mission, so nobody knows. However, what's nice about this film is that we don't have the overly heroic ending where he's crying and shouting and screaming and basically dying with the ship. You know, he does get to go home, and he makes it home, and he gets back with his girlfriend, and he realises that love and life are more important than just the mission. And so that's a very quick overview of the plot. It's quite a long film, but I've tried to shorten it down so that it's not just me waffling about the plot. So obviously the key characters of this film, most of which I've mentioned: Roy McBride, the space guy; Clifford McBride, older space guy; who does the out deep space mission. Helen Lantos, who is the head of Mars, she's trying to keep Mars safe. She's doing quite a good job of it, but Mars is an ground base, so it's not really being affected by the rays too much of his ship. And then we've got Thomas Pruitt, the guy who has the most important piece of information, and that lets Roy know that actually this is a to kill mission, not a to save mission. And Eve, who is played by Liv Tyler, she has quite a small role in this film. It's fairly important. It just gives us an insight into Roy's mentality. She's the girlfriend. She's the one that in the end he goes home to, apologises to, and realises that actually love and life is more important than the mission. So the key themes of this film is that actually did something quite nice that I'm not seeing too much in a film, certainly not in recent times, which is we get a running narrative of what's happening in Roy's mind from Roy himself. And this is where he discusses things such as, wherever humanity goes, destruction follows. He discusses this on Earth, and I think it gets mentioned again when he's heading to Saturn. And what he's saying is that, beauty is always destroyed. We go to the moon, we start mining. When we're on the moon as well, we're destroying things, we're fighting each other, we're pirating, we're trying to kill each other. Why? Why can't we just enjoy life and be friendly and all try and achieve the mission of finding new life together? Why is somebody always out to make a quick buck or try and destroy somebody else? The importance of the mission is obviously a big part of this film, where he's always wrestling with, is the mission more important than life? He's very accepting that he had to kill the people. He says it in his evaluation when he's on that ship on his own. He says, I boarded the ship, I didn't try and be a hostile, but it led to the deaths of these people, and that's an unfortunate circumstance. He sort of accepts it, he's very accepting, he's very military minded that, losses sometimes have to happen for the good of the mission. He discusses grief, the grief of loss, which is very much discussed by the different crews on the members of the ships that he's on, because when the guy gets his face torn off by the monkey, although farcical, they give him a very nice space burial, I suppose, so they say a few words and then they let him off out the top of the ship, and he then gets to float away, and they're saying, go meet your maker, be in peace, enjoy your life, you're a great captain type of thing. And so he discusses grief in those ways. The loneliness part is very much discussed when he's on the ship on his own, and he's wrestling with that. We can all put ourselves in that position, and I thought that was quite powerful about it, that if you're on your own, in the dark effectively, for 50 days, just floating around, you would eventually start to question things and question your build-up and question your mentality and start wondering, is there more life out there? What am I doing here? Is my life really just about missions and war and destruction? Or am I wanting to, have love and happiness and joy? And I think that was quite nice. And finally, the thing that the whole film is based on is the need and the human want to find new life. And I think that's quite interesting, that humans are always trying to find new life. And the film sort of makes that point, why are we always looking out there rather than looking at what Earth has to offer? And in the end, the top and bottom of it is his dad doesn't really find any new life. That's the conclusions. And his dad really can't handle this. He says, I have to find new life, I have to find new life. And Roy goes, you don't. Your research is done. You've told us that it's only us here. And we therefore have to make the most of us. And we have to make the most of the opportunity we've been given and enjoy the world and make our solar system special. Rather than worrying about how others can help us, we have to begin to help ourselves rather than being so destructive. And I think that's quite a powerful message in today's world. There's a lot of destruction, a lot of death, a lot of turning a blind eye. And, I think it was nice to show that he has the mentality now that humanity needs to come together and explore the solar system together, rather than sort of it always being a race of who can get there first, who's got the biggest, fastest, strongest ship. So, just a few other points finally. It's very visually stunning. Unbelievable. You really feel that you are transported to space. You feel like you're on Mars. You feel like you're on the moon, and that's really stunning. And I think whoever did the special effects should be really proud of that, because I was certainly very immersed, and I never really got took out of the film, like I say, other than the one monkey farce. But the special effects are unbelievable. Really high tech stuff. So I definitely recommend it if you're a big special effect buff. And finally, like I mentioned, it has the non-heroic ending, and I think that's really good because that's a bit different. You know, we watch all these Bond films and he's always going down with the ship, all these one-man army films, and they're always jumping through fire and explosions, and this is a lot more tame, I suppose. But I think that's quite nice to just go and see a film that's a little bit different. And finally, like I say, he realises that love and life is more important than the mission. And one other point that I would like to just chat about quickly is that the acting is cold but believable. And this is only really from Roy McBride. And what I mean by this is that he comes across as a cold character. He comes across as somebody that we shouldn't really like. But we do end up liking because he becomes relatable. You know, so he's very cold, he's not that loving, he's not that joyous, he's not that emotional. But we like him because he feels like he could be any of us, and that's relatable. And I think that's really powerful script writing and really powerful acting on Brad Pitt's part. So overall, I'd say that the film was pretty decent. I'd probably say, you know, good 3.5, 4 out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did think it might have been about 20 minutes too long, but just at the start, really, the story was quite slow to get going. And the bit of the monkey thing is dropping a star for me because it was really farcical. But apart from that, well worth a watch if you can get your hands on it. Give it a go, especially if you're into space and sci-fi and special effects. Well worth it. So I'm going for a 4 out of 5 on this one. I hope you've enjoyed it.